Night Anime Recap. Today I'm going to explain a school comedy series called Seton Academy, Join the Pack. Animals of all different species attend high school at Seton Academy. The school was established to bring a variety of creatures together and enhance their survival instincts while placed in a common territory, which in this case is on campus grounds. Freshman student Mazama Jean heads to the courtyard for the school's entrance ceremony. Unlike most of his classmates, Jean seems to be the only Homo sapien there, which makes him stand out. In the world they're living in, the human race has almost completely gone extinct. Their population is growing less and less over time, so finding other humans in Seton, or in their world for that matter, is pretty rare. Seton Academy's completely filled with animals, from the classrooms to the faculty. It's basically a certain subset of people's paradise. Jean, however, is in hell. Boy has an intense hatred for every species except humans, and he doesn't even try to hide it. While in the center of all his chaotic classmates, Jean wears a scowl on his face and inwardly complains about having to go to school with a bunch of beasts. There seems to be no end to his classmates' wild antics. There's hooting, hollering, and even random objects flying over his head. A pineapple even hits Bullseye, with Bullseye being Jin's entire face. In his irritation, he throws back the pineapple without aiming for anyone. He unintentionally chucks it at a pink-haired girl, knocking her several feet away. After some moments, she stands up, completely fuming as she scans the crowd for Jean, who immediately averts his gaze after noticing her gaze on him. She pounces at him, only to end up hitting a fish tank that actually contains their school's headmaster, Amano, who is apparently a rare type of shrimp. As the school's headmaster is floundering and gasping for breath, literally on the verge of dying, he asks the girl, who had just broken his tank, to help him get some water. Coming back to her senses, she looks menacingly at Amano. Instead of helping him, she tries to chew up his body. She plays with him like a rag doll, taking her anger out on a poor defenseless shrimp for missing her target as the crowd of students watches her. In a classroom, Jean is visibly annoyed as he is surrounded by his animal classmates chatting at the highest volume possible or busy roughhousing. The moment that class is over, he heads out to the cafeteria, unable to stand the ear-deafening noise in the room any longer. Get this guy some earplugs. Jean is now waiting for his turn in line to order from the school's lunch menu. But when it's finally his turn, he sees that they're only serving a variety of worms, grass, dirt, and the like. Not really having better options, he orders a huge piece of raw meat, which alone is already taking up most of his plate. Since he doesn't want to bring any attention to himself or be disturbed, Jean finds an empty seat on a table at the corner of the room and sits down, putting as much distance away from other animals. When he is about to put his food down, he realizes that someone is sitting on the other side. Unluckily for him, it's the same hyper-energetic girl that he threw a pineapple to the face earlier. Ukami Runka is from the Ezo wolf species, and her actions are similar to those of a dog most of the time. When she sees Jean getting near her, she starts to growl and hold her food closer to her. Not so different from humans. Come on, Jean. Although he may hate animals to the core, the fun fact about Jean is that he's actually an expert in knowing essential details about them. Seeing Runka's tense and defensive body language, he looks away instead of making eye contact, letting her know he doesn't want to start a fight. Runka understands his intentions and immediately calms down. However, she doesn't wholly put her guard down since his presence still bothers her. To avoid a bigger conflict, Jean decides that the fastest way to get her to trust him is by offering his food to her. When she realizes what he's doing, her expressions from before change drastically as she starts to drool and devours the whole piece of meat as if she hasn't eaten in days. His actions had completely won her over. Jean relaxes and watches her eat as he calls her stupid in his thoughts. When he is about to take a bite of his lunch, Runka stands at the table, with her tail happily wagging behind her. She invites Jean to be a member of her pack. She tells him that she is the boss of a proud wolf group and would allow him to join her. When she looks back at him, he isn't paying attention and only focuses on eating his meal. He's got his priorities straight, I guess. Runka gets annoyed at his lack of interest and suddenly pesters him why he wouldn't want to join her pack. Bringing up a bone from the raw meat he just ate, he lets Runka sniff it, then tosses the bone far away to get rid of her. Playing fetch already? After dealing with Runka, another voice asks Jean from behind if the seat next to him is taken. Tired of having such horrible encounters all day, Jean yells at the person to leave, but he stops mid-sentence when he sees that it is another human, specifically a human girl, talking to him. Hino Hitomi is the only other human enrolled in Seton Academy. She's also a member of the Homo sapiens species, and the person who Jean instantly falls in love with at first sight. Now getting his full attention, Hitomi asks Jean if he has already finished eating. Jean tells her he was just starting to eat and invites her to eat lunch together. As she sits next to him, Hitomi tells Jean that she is glad to have met another human since they're the only two of their kind in school. All of a sudden, Jean is thankful that he is a human. Just when things are starting to get better, Runka comes back with the bone in her mouth and starts yelling at Hitomi, asking Jean who the strange female is. Hitomi nervously asks Jean if she is his friend, and he instantly shakes his head and denies it. In a fit of rage, Runka gets closer to Hitomi's face and challenges her to fight if she wants to take her mail away from her. Jean argues that he isn't Runka's mail and that she shouldn't call him that either. Feeling terrible thinking that she's the one interfering, Hitomi apologizes to both of them and hurriedly leaves. Jean sighs dejectedly, and Runka smirks at him, saying she has won the battle. Blazing in anger, Jean makes it clear to Runka that he never wanted to join her pack and that they shouldn't even be in a group together, gesturing to everyone else in the room, showing her that they should only be getting along with their own kind. Runka tells Jean that what he's saying isn't true at all in a low voice. She then shares about an incident that happened when she was just a child. We see a young Runka crying as she is being bullied by 3 mean bears. Just when they were about to hit her, a boy showed up from behind them and ran to shield her. Runka believed that different creatures could actually get along from that moment on. A human once saved her life, after all. Now, years later, she wants to start a pack that consists of different animals, including Jean. Laying down in his dorm room that night, it is revealed that Jean was the kid that had saved Runka when she was a child. The thing is, his memories weren't exactly how Runka had viewed them. From Jin's perspective, he was completely terrified of standing up to those bears. They also beat him up roughly afterward. To make matters worse, Runka had licked all his wounds, which left him uncomfortable. The whole experience was apparently the root cause for his hatred of animals. His anti-animal origin story, you might say. The next day, Hitomi takes the initiative to approach Jean, and the two clear up the misunderstandings that happened before. When the mood becomes lighter, Hitomi talks about wanting to start a cooking club at their school and asks Jean if he'd be interested in joining. Thinking of it as an excuse to get closer to Hitomi, he agrees and secretly hopes that it'll just be the two of them. In the heat of the moment, Jean tells Hitomi that he's looking forward to being in a pack with her and is immediately embarrassed by her blushing reaction. Later that day, when classes are over, Runka is curled up behind one of the buildings, still feeling down from the argument earlier. Truth be told, she is actually really happy for Jean for wanting to be in a pack with Hitomi. The main reason is that she didn't want him to be alone, just like she's always been when she first entered the school. Unexpectedly, Hitomi comes by to talk with her while she is still in deep thought and makes her feel better by asking if she'd want to be friends. She also reassures Runka that she'd be happy to join her pack. Hearing all this, Runka smiles at Hitomi, thankful for her kind words, and the two become friends. Unfortunately, their moment is interrupted when a pack of bears suddenly picks a fight, aiming to attack Runka. They claim that it'll be fun to mess with someone so inferior to them. Runka tries to fight them all off, but in the end, it is hopeless as she is overpowered by their strength. Things become more serious when they take hold of Hitomi and start violating her body, seeing her as a toy and a weakling. This pushes Hitomi to scream for help, and it is heard by Jean, who is about to leave the school. When he arrives at the scene, his presence distracts the bears and makes the perfect opportunity for Runka to free Hitomi and tells her to run. Now the bears' new target, they try to attack Jean, but he hits them with bear spray. However, it only stopped them for a bit. Fortunately, a furious Runka shields him from their hits. Jean is left stunned at what an animal has just done for him. However, it left Runka weak and Jean defenseless. Before the bears can actually harm them, Hitomi is back and rescues them by bringing their teacher, Gigas Toronto, who is a T-Rex that threatens to make their species extinct if they don't stop their attack. The bears run away in fear. With the threat gone, Runka tries to leave but is stopped by Jean, who agrees to join her pack. He's not entirely fond of the idea but allows it since she did, in fact, save his life just a moment ago. It's the least he could do to repay her. Overjoyed, she pounces on Jean and starts licking him on the face while he tries to get her off of him. Hitomi is also visibly shocked as she watches the whole scene from the side. Runka tells him that it is customary for wolves to lick new members of the pack. After licking Jin's face, Runka does it to Hitomi next. The two have officially joined her pack. It's the morning of the next day for the students, and with permission from the school, Hitomi and Jin's cooking club has officially started. As for Runka, despite being their new boss, she still has to go through a test to show if she's capable or not to be in the club. In reality, The test was created by Jean so that no other animals could join him and Hitomi. When they're about to begin, a girl appears out of nowhere and says she's ready to take their test. Yukari Komori is a koala bear who's been forced to eat eucalyptus leaves her whole life. She wants to be a member of their cooking club to eat other dishes, as she is sick of eating the same food all the time. Moreover, she is actually looking for a dish that she had tried as a kid. The koala believes humans will help her find it because of their omnivorous preference for meals. Jean, of course, gets annoyed at the appearance of another animal. Still, Hitomi and Runka decide to welcome her, with Runka using her newfound authority to allow Komori to take the test. Surprisingly, Komori is actually a very skillful cook, as she makes decently cooked pasta for all of them to try. However, she purposely drops some ingredients on the floor, reasoning that it adds to the flavor. When they try her meal, it is more than delicious, and all of them agree that she would do well in the club, including Jean. Komori makes an unexpected comment about Runka and him looking like an interspecies couple. She asks Hitomi if she's upset about Runka stealing her mate. Jean overhears Hitomi answer that he isn't her mate and that there's only friendship between them. With his back turned to them, Jean cries. Seeing his teary eyes, Runka asks him what's wrong, but he only says it's because of the onions he's currently chopping. Runka then starts to worry if she could do a good job on the test as well. This gives Jean an idea and suddenly motivates her to do her best and just cook from the heart. Jin's plan is to let Runka cook an extremely disgusting dish and let Komori eat it so she'd be convinced to leave the club after seeing what kind of horrible food they'd be making. As he expected, Runka's dish radiates a dangerous aroma and lets Komori have a taste. Komori's eyes are opened wide. She realizes that Runka's dish tastes exactly the same as what she had eaten as a kid. Just then, a memory comes back to her, and the food that she was actually fed with was her mom's, feces after she was born. Apparently, baby koalas are normally fed with those at a young age. Let's just say that all of them were disturbed after hearing that information. After successfully passing the test, the group welcomes Komori as their new clubmate and the fourth member of the pack. And despite her horrendous cooking skills, Runka is in as well, since Hitomi decides to just teach new members who want to join the club. Jean realizes that the whole test was actually pointless. Another stranger comes in unannounced when the group officially starts a meeting about getting more ingredients for their club activities. This time the pack meets a domesticated cat named Kurumi Nekamai. She has been observing the group the entire day. Like Komori, Jean isn't happy with the possibility of having another animal around, but the cat surprises them when she says that she isn't interested in joining their club. Instead, she asks if she could follow them to get vegetables from the gardening club in school. The group doesn't really agree, but when Kurumi starts purring, Hitomi and Komori are persuaded by her, so she tags along. Throughout the day, Jean and Runka realize that Kurumi uses her purring to manipulate others to agree with what she wants, stimulating the nurturing instincts of animals towards her. When they arrive at the gardening club consisting of boars as members, Kurumi uses her purring ability and convinces them to give all their vegetables. Back in the club room, Kurumi reveals her real intentions of wanting the group to forget about the cooking club and instead start a napping club with her, since cooking is just too much work. When the group disagrees, she uses her purring abilities once more. Unfortunately for the scheming cat, it doesn't work, as everyone wants to continue cooking since it's something they value doing. Annoyed that they didn't listen to her, Kurumi leaves the club room, saying she doesn't want to join their group anyway. The girls become sad after hearing her words, but Jean tells them to forget about her. Runka decides to look for another member to recruit instead. During class time, she's able to find another member named Mayubi Shishio, a brown-throated sloth. Like all sloths, Mayubi quickly gets tired, and her movements, even her talking, are usually very slow. This time, Jean tells Runka that she can't recruit Mayubi. Aside from his dislike for animals, she also won't be able to keep up with anything they'll do. She can't even move 90% of the time. Out of nowhere, their teacher appears by the window and orders them to help Mayubi get to her dorm, since she often gets home very late from her lack of speed. Out of fear from their intimidating teacher, they carry Mayubi back. Runka decides to give her a bath, but leaves Jean when she finds her shampoo bottle empty. Right when she leaves, Mayubi begins to drown and becomes unconscious from the hot water in the bathtub. Not knowing what else to do, Jean helps her finish her bath and gets her out to get dressed. But this is all wholesome, promise. No perving happen. While he helps her get dry, Mayubi suddenly thanks Jean for letting her join their pack. Earlier that day, Runka had approached her and said not to worry about fitting in since Jean made her feel welcome even though they're two different species. Again, Jean is left stunned by Runka's actions. Mayubi officially becomes the cooking club's newest member, and the group welcomes her into the room. Runka's pack now has several members, and while she's all peachy about it, Jean can't help but feel a bit irritated. Still, at least they're all getting along well despite their differences, and no matter the world you're in, that's sometimes the most you can ask for.